If you've never tried experimenting with stacking gain pedals before, I believe you're missing out on one of the most enjoyable aspects of guitar pedals, and that's finding new combinations. That being said, before you get started, there are some things you should know. So this is my list of 5 things that I wish I knew about gain stacking sooner. Number 1. The later a pedal is in your chain, the greater an impact it has on your overall sound. One really clear example of this is drive into boost or boost into drive. So in front of my pedal board, I've got the TC Electronics Spark and the Fulltone OCD. So we're gonna start by turning on the OCD and see what that sounds like. Pretty good. Now we're gonna boost into the OCD with the Spark. For this, I don't wanna hear any dirt from the Spark, I just wanna get volume. So I've got the level all the way up and the gain almost all the way down. So here's what it sounds like to boost into that. So there's a difference there, but it's pretty darn subtle, right? You get a little more drive and just a little bit more volume. But now let's take these exact same settings and I'm going to swap the order of them. So instead of boosting into the OCD, we'll be boosting after the OCD. So now let's hear what it sounds like when I boost after the OCD. And all of a sudden, we've got tons of volume on tap, right? If you want a solo boost on your board, that's exactly how you should set it up. Put your boost after your main overdrive. That's gonna give you more volume instead of giving you more gain. However, if you just want more dirt, boosting into an overdrive is a great way to do it and something that I do a lot. You can think of it this way. It's like the last pedal in your chain gets the last say as to how your guitar sounds. Now with this, there's of course not a wrong way or a right way. It just depends on what you're looking for. So if you want more volume, put the pedal that is giving you more volume later in your chain. If you want more dirt, put the pedal that is giving you dirt later in your chain. Does that make sense? Number 2, less is more when gain stacking. If you're trying to get to your ideal level of gain, we'll call that like 100% gain, whatever that looks like for you. Now, if you've got 2 pedals that are both capable of getting to 100%, you should probably set those closer to 50% each. And that gives you the ability to have a sound that's sort of half power and then a sound that's sort of full power. Now have a quick look at the settings on my gain stages. See, every one of them is about 50% or less. In some cases, it's significantly less than half. And that's because if you're running multiple gains, you don't have to push either of them quite as hard as you would if you're running one pedal by itself. Number 3, you can get great results by running your pedals from heaviest to lightest. I believe I first got this concept from Josh Scott of JHS Pedals. The way I've got my board set up is that I'm running the heaviest drives first into the lightest drives. One of the reasons I have my pedal board laid out this way is because I use my Lightspeed as sort of a always on first gain stage pedal. So my fuzz pedal is hitting the front end of my overdrive pedal. And in doing so, I feel like I get a little more even sound and I'm not getting such a huge difference between the overdrive sound and the overdrive plus fuzz sound. Here's a quick example of that. That's still a big boosted fuzz sound, but to my ear that sounds a little more even because the Lightspeed still has some say in my overall tone. Number 4, be aware of the EQ curve of your pedals. There's a big difference between overdrive pedals that have sort of a flat frequency response and pedals that have sort of a mid bump to them. That's part of the reason the Tube Screamer has been a mainstay on so many pedal boards for years and years and years. The mid-frequency boost that you get from a Tube Screamer really can bring a guitar over the top. That's why I've got the Moonshine by JHS on my pedal board. That circuit is based on a TS-808 Tube Screamer. Now, like I told you earlier, I usually just boost into it, but because the Tube Screamer already has a mid hump, I'm not just boosting to get more level and distortion, I'm boosting to also increase those mids. Here's what that sounds like. I'm using the tube screamer much in the same way that you would use a tube screamer into an already dirty amp. Instead of having a dirty amp, I've got the Lightspeed. It's just hitting that Lightspeed harder and giving it more compression, more dirt, more drive, all in that midsection, which really can be a really great sound. It's great for solos too. Before we move on, here's what each of those pedals sound like by themselves. Which brings us to the last thing on our list, and that's don't be afraid to experiment. Don't settle for the sounds that you assume are the best that your pedals are capable of, regardless of whether you've got more cost-effective pedals or really expensive boutique stuff. I believe there's great sounds to be had in there. Put them through their paces, try them at their extremes, and then once you've figured out what they're good at and maybe where they lack some mojo, you can introduce them to a pedal buddy. Somebody that's gonna be by their side and maybe give them a kick when they need it. This is getting silly. But for real, explore, try stuff. I know you're gonna find something great. On the topic of experimenting, if you've ever wondered the difference between in-series and in-parallel signal routing, I go over that and give some examples in this video. There's also a link down in the description. Until then, keep getting better.